Welcome, beautiful sisters, to an amazing episode. I can't wait to dive right in empowering ourselves and our sex life. As you can see, I'm having some troubles with my voice. Thank God, sensuality and exploring your sexuality is not about seduction, as that would be a superficial layer of our conversation, so I don't have to have a sexy voice for today's dialogue. I apologize for my voice, but I wanted to show up anyway, as this topic is relevant and important to well-being. So welcome. I hope my voice will land eventually, and please apologize all the breaks I have to take in between. So let's dive deep. Today's episode is about having a breakthrough in our power in relationship to our sexuality, and it's focused on how to lead the way in our sex life. Hi, and welcome to the Feminine Podcast, your weekly source of feminine guidance and inspiration. I'm Wana Stojanovic, CEO and founder of the Feminine Platform, transformational coach, and a rite of passage facilitator. Here at the Feminine Podcast, we view every woman's life as a canvas, each stroke filled with stories that shape and empower you. Join me in this unique journey as we explore the rich tapestry of emotions, passions, and profound questions that we encounter on the feminine path. This isn't just a podcast. It's a sacred space where your voice matters, where healing and inspiration unite, where a community of curious, powerful, and passionate women come together to trailblaze what it means to live a feminine embodied life. Are you ready to embrace a life filled with passion? Create from the depths of your heart and fully embody the essence of the feminine? Look no further. You found your sanctuary. Well, how to lead the way in our sex life is meant to help us understand that we do have power regardless of the circumstances we're in our sex life. And whether you are alone, desiring more passion, intimacy, and sex in your life with a man, having trouble attracting men or the right men, whether you are in a relating status where the man comes and goes and it's not yet clear and fulfilling how it all unfolds, whether you are unsatisfied in your sexual relationships or in your sex life in general and you can't have orgasm, you're not satisfied, you're not fulfilled, you don't know how to break that pattern, or you are in a relationship and in this particular long-term relationship you're in with a partner, a husband, or a long-time lover, you may experience insatisfaction in bedroom or happy sex or amazing, fulfilling sex, but you want more and you want to take it to the next level. So wherever you are on the spectrum, I want you to start by saying, yes, I'm okay. Because I think every breakthrough, we should start with acknowledging that we want a breakthrough, that we're amazing anyway, that whatever we have and we don't have is just the starting point of a transformational process. And at the end of that transformational process, so many things await us. So I want you to start by taking a deep breath and love yourself in the moment. Accept yourself, acknowledge who you are in the moment. And whatever you have and you don't have in your sex life, just try to allow it. Forgive yourself, forgive others, accept where you are. Because we can't really have a breakthrough in anything unless we deeply accept. So it starts with acceptance. And that would be our first step, accepting where we are, which opens the door to being more honest, more vulnerable with ourselves about what's missing in our sexual life. And the number one thing you're going to come up with is what's missing is what the man doesn't do. Because we're so wired and so conditioned that our fulfillment sexually has to do with the man, with our partner, future or present or past. So immediately in this conversation, in our mind, we are linking our sexual fulfillment to what the partner does or doesn't. And I came with this particular premise for this episode because I think premise is important, context is important. And in order for us to be empowered, we need to actually have access directly to the power that we have in any area we want to have a breakthrough in. So When you make the assumption that it is the partner who doesn't do something, who's not enough, who doesn't listen, who doesn't care, who is stubborn, asshole, whatever, rejects you, abandons you, doesn't touch you the way you need it, doesn't reciprocate your passion and your love, you are already giving your power away. Because the moment you are engaged in this inner dialogue, who's accountable for what you're having in your sexuality? Him. And you are, by default, connected and a victim of what he does and he doesn't do. So basically, one of the things you have to cut cords with to start your empowering sexual journey and healing on the sexual journey is to take the point of view that whatever you want to explore and experience in your sex life has to come through you. And it is up to you to give yourself permission to explore your own territory, psychologically, energetically, emotionally, physically, sexually, so that you discover who you are and your potential for pleasure, regardless and independent of men. In ancient tribal times, young girls, virgin girls, would be taken into a sexual initiation by old, mature, initiated priestesses. Two rituals were constant in that initiation. One was opening to our sexuality, exploring our senses, feeling comfortable naked with one another, learning to touch ourselves, learning that there's a sexual energy and a sexual fire running through our energetic system, learning that touch, breath work, guidance, dancing, sacred fire, and holding ourselves together in this sensual environment, because it wasn't about being a lesbian, it wasn't about having sex with other women, it was about a sensuality that was cultivated within women. It had nothing to do with a sexual dynamic. It is what opens the senses and helps you feel your sexual fire moving through your whole body. Because an open, expressed sexuality is not about the genital organs. It is about feeling the fire of your sexual energy throughout your whole body. It's about the embodiment of that sexual fire in your body. So young girls would learn how to be naked, feel naked, dance naked, love their senses, open their senses, cultivate their senses, touch themselves, orgasm through touch, but not necessarily sexual touch. It can just be like a feather moving from the toes to the head. And how to breathe and whisper to the energy so that you are allowing the rush of the fire to move through your body and have an energetic experience of pleasure, of you making love with Shakti. And the reason why older women would initiate these younger women into this sacred touch, into this sacred sexual, sensual bonding, into sacred dance, into sacred chanting, and sacred breath work, was for them to understand their sexual potential, independent of men, disconnected from men, because women would hold a maternal sacred listening to that process. There was nothing they wanted except for that woman to feel her sexual energy in her unique manner, come to understand it, come to play with it, come to explore and discover it, come to make love with it, come to understand her deep ecstatic potential by herself. What would that enable one? Well, it enabled one to first birth her sexual identity, meaning that your sexual identity is your unique sexual energy, right? That needs to be birthed. It's like an inner goddess. It's like an Aphrodite. Well, Aphrodite within you needs to be birthed. It's a psychological, psychic, conscious birth. And when you're ready psychologically for this birth, Shakti will guide you into the opening of your inner Aphrodite. So you are a maternal, holding energy, holding space for your inner goddess, for your inner Aphrodite, and she will birth itself as a young energy, primitive baby energy, and then she'll move into a childlike energy, into an adolescent energy, into a fully embodied woman, and into a goddess. And these are stages, psychologically, energetically, and sexually, that you will venture, being guided by your own Shakti, by your own Aphrodite, and by yourself in this amazing exploration. At each stage, something deeper opens in your sexuality, with yourself, with the man. But the man is the third phase of this expression of who you are. You birth your sensuality and your sexuality by understanding that there is an Aphrodite waiting to awaken within you. Wise priestesses would just hold space for this sacred birthing. It was a spiritual process that had to do with sensual practices. And in that place of meeting oneself in the sacred listening of a wise woman, a woman would feel safe to take her time, safe to feel into her own inner rhythm, safe because she was wrapped in the loving arms and ears and hands of the mother to go through her guilt, her shame, her humiliation, her disconnect, her numbness, all the natural negative blockages we have at the beginning journey of exploring our senses and our sexual fire. There's nothing wrong with not feeling. It's just a stage. But you have to push through it, and through practice and touch and awareness and dance and sacred breathing, start feeling. So it's a practice. And in the loving embrace of the mother energy, one would find the environment in which to explore, connected to her own inner rhythm, loving herself in the process, taking her time with it. If an energy of the man would show up in this particular process, what would happen would be a pressure, because the man would get stirred up, he would have an erection, and he would want sex. And what would a young woman do? Well, it would follow that energy, because she would feel important, beautiful, and also turned on. But that's in the middle of her birthing her Aphrodite. So what she'll do is she will link her Aphrodite to what the man sees in her. And this is how we all started our sexual energy. It was the first man who saw something in us, triggered by his sexual fire. We felt something and we equated what we felt with our sexual identity. The man was imperfect. He abandoned or left us. He saw probably 10% of who we are. And now we're trapped in having a limited sexual identity through the lenses of the man we first met in bed, or the second, or the third, or the fourth, the sum of all the men we've slept with. But men can't really see the sexual potential of a woman because they are not blessed by Shakti. A woman has an amazing sexual potential that by far exceeds men's sexual potential. So no matter how great your lover has been, it's still limited in relationship to what is your Aphrodite's sexual potential. So you're leading the way the moment you understand that you need to disentangle from the man's energy and ignite this spiritual process of birthing your inner Aphrodite. And I'm going to talk about how to do that very briefly, because you want to create an environment for your Aphrodite to show you the full path, the full potential. And then you're taking your power back. Your power is coming from this sacred dance between you, your inner Aphrodite, and Shakti. That's when you're going to experience and understand your full sexual potential. And it's an ever-expanding journey. That's the beauty of it. It never stops. There's no plateau with this. And the men come into that space. They are attracted by the environment you have created within you and outside of you. You are emanating a magnetic sensual vibration. That's your Aphrodite. Your job is to take care of this inner Aphrodite. Your job is to secure the environment in which your Aphrodite thrives. And in doing that, you're going to be guided by Shakti and your inner Aphrodite into levels of ecstasy and pleasure and orgasm and initiation that far transcends what you will ever experience in lovemaking with a man. But lovemaking with a man is crucial. A man is important in this journey. But we need to understand his particular role inside of this amazing process. We need to correct our dynamic with him. What's the man? The man is not responsible to birth your inner Aphrodite. Your inner Aphrodite will be activated in the space of a man because his own sexual fire fires up a magnetism that wakes up your fire, your inner Aphrodite. But you are accountable for your Aphrodite no matter what the man does. So even if he's the best lover ever and you are reaching heights of ecstasy, you need to understand he's a catalyst. Those heights are yours. So if you take the point of view that it's only him that's going to give you the heights, you are destroying the sacredness, the privilege of being a woman who embodies Aphrodite and Shakti in this lifetime, and you're giving all that treasure away to a man. And you're saying, you have power over me, you have given me the greatest heights, it is only you. That's not true. Your heights are yours. Your heights are governed by your inner Shakti and your inner Aphrodite. And with practice, the man can leave your life and you still will have heights and other heights above that if you continue in this sacred dance, in this sacred journey with your inner Aphrodite and inner Shakti. This assumption that the man is how we have power in sex is what's ruining our leadership in sex. And that doesn't mean we don't have to be grateful for Shiva. It doesn't mean we don't have to honor the sexual fire of men, the catalyst that men is in our journey. I love men and I love lovers and I want to dance with them. I want to make love with them. But the moment a lover can't reach new heights with me, I don't have to stop my potential. And let alone, I don't have to identify myself through his own filters and lenses. Because eventually, those lenses and those filters may not serve me. And when they do serve me, I want to ride that wave. When they don't serve me, I want to disentangle from that. Because I love myself and I respect myself more than however somebody chooses to see me at a certain point. This is about, first of all, the sacred contract between your inner Aphrodite and your Shakti. And then it's about a sacred contract with yourself, with loving and honoring and respecting who you are as an amazing embodied woman and inviting a man into that environment, inviting a man into that space and never letting your self-respect down, never letting your self-worth down. These are the ways in which you protect Shakti. These are the ways in which you thrive. These are the ways in which you allow Aphrodite to come through. There's an amazing legend about goddess. It is actually about Artemis, not Aphrodite, who was bathing in an amazing forest, pristine virgin forest with her dogs. And one man, a mortal, dared to go into this pristine forest where the goddess, right? The goddess is not a woman. She's something superior, okay? So she's embodying godliness, values, virtues, frequencies. She's half human, half God. So this guy, mortal, ventured into meeting Artemis. He wanted to see the goddess. But he was not allowed. The rules were very clear. You don't watch the goddess. Especially you don't watch her bathing in the sacred river naked. So the guy was brave and he decided to sneak peek onto Artemis' bath. And he got a glimpse of her. Artemis and her dogs caught the guy and turned him into a stone. The lesson of this particular story is great because in order for you to reach godliness, you have to follow the rules of godliness. You cannot be a mortal and enter with your dirty feet into a pristine space and think you are entitled to the energy, the vibration, and the space of that unique, experience. So what did the guy miss? Humbleness, respect for the goddess. If he would have prayed 21 days to Artemis' dogs to go and try to convince Artemis to let him sneak peek into her and invite Artemis to show him however and whatever she wanted to show him. If she would have been generous enough to do that, then he would have an entry into that world. But he disobeyed the rules. He just became his mortal self and decided he's arrogant enough to meet the goddess. So the goddess punished him. You are not enough to meet the goddess. You need to follow the rules. There are rules to enter into sacredness. And this comes down to us. One, we can't be little girls. We can't say, this journey is about the man in my life. The moment I say that, my power goes to the man. Okay, and now I'm trapped. I'm a victim. So, step number 1, stop being a victim. Step number 2, understand as a woman incarnated in a woman body in this lifetime, you are prepared to meet the goddess. Preparing to meet the goddess is not the same with meeting the goddess. You are not entitled to your inner Aphrodites and to Shakti by default. So now, once you're freed up from my sexual identity equals what a man saw in me and how I felt around a man, second step is my sexual potential has to do with Shakti. It has to do with me following the rules of the sacredness that Shakti is as a spiritual teacher, as a goddess, as an initiator, as a priestess. And understanding that my purpose in exploring, healing my sexuality is to start following her guidance and then birthing my inner Aphrodite if I receive her blessing. Your focus moves from the man to meeting the source of your sexual potential and power, which is Shakti. So now you're on one-on-one with Shakti. And through ritual, guided practice, guided meditation, you have to understand the rules of engagement. You have to understand the rules of communication because Shakti, yes, you are her daughter and she will come, but you have to honor who she is. You have to understand she's a goddess. She won't talk to you if you engage like a mortal. You need to have humbleness. You need to have purity. You need to have sacredness. And you need to be serious. It can be a childlike tantrum energy. And you have to go there with allowing, becoming vulnerable, being molded, being humble, being willing to transform and metamorphosize in her space. And then she comes. And then she'll teach you. But then your mind needs to hear the message. Because she's going to tell you probably things that will feel awkward to you because you've been trained by Western society. I love this question. Why don't I feel hot during prelude and during sex, although I do everything by the book? So there's a book or there's an assumption about how to have a sex life, right? From the Western point of view. And you've read the book and you're following the rules of the book. So now your transformation is about living those rules and following Shakti's rules, Shakti messages. And, most of the time, Shakti won't even talk about sex or your lover. She'll say, go in nature and walk barefooted. What? How can that give me orgasm? Well, I have a whole explanation, scientific explanation, how that will give you orgasm, but that's not the point of today's life. But basically, it's about not knowing, not understanding, and listening to her and doing that. And if you do that, something shifts, something opens up, and then there's another message. And if you follow the other message, something shifts, something opens up, and you're in a metamorphosis. You are in a process of transformation. You are on your journey. And of course, at some point, if the right information comes, the right techniques join you, you are attracting them because you are shifting your vibration under Shakti guidance. You're following your inner rhythm. Your body is becoming your teacher. You're listening to him. You're now walking on your senses and your intuition, and you're following this amazing ancestral guidance. And you are on the path. And the path will open at each level, at each stage into a new chapter. So now you are leaving the books, leaving the assumptions, leaving everything you've learned or decided about your references or your standards about your sex life, and you are following the goddess. And the goddess will guide you to the birth of your Aphrodite. You are now on a journey of embodying what was your birthright the moment you entered this incarnation as a woman. Your birthright was to be a channel of love and ecstasy, a channel of Shakti. So now you're coming back into your feminine heritage. You're coming back home. And this is a channeling. There are no books about this. We're doing this through oral transmissions because we have received it in either direct channeling from the goddess and in the lifetimes we've lived as sacred priestesses, some of us. So it's a reigniting of a heritage that's not yet written in books or lived in movies. But it's real. It's in your bones, and it's in your DNA, it's in your ovaries. It just needs to be unlocked. But you need to understand the rules of engagement, right? So this is how I would start. Give yourself a reset. Your sex life has nothing to do with anything in your environment. It has to do with your internal birth of your Aphrodite. And you have to want her. You have to look for her. You want to ask her to show up. You want to engage with the open question. What is the right internal environment I have to create within me so that my Aphrodites come to life? What is the listening, the approach, the way in which I have to engage with Shakti so that Shakti starts guiding me? These are the two number one open questions that will help you move on the path and awaken this amazing ecstatic potential, this orgasmic potential that we all have locked within. And when you'll be ready, mentally and psychically and emotionally, the fire comes, and it's intense, and it's raw, and it's beautiful. It's teaching you every single step of the way. So moving from wherever you are on the journey into feeling fully empowered is about opening to the question, how do I allow myself this deep inner shift of closing my external sight, like looking at the man, looking at the world, looking at what I've learned, looking at seduction techniques and all of these things I've learned through the Western world, the patriarchal world. And I close my eyes and I move within and I listen to my body, and I start the process of honoring my body as a sacred temple, because I need to create a sacred temple within me to allow Shakti in her high state of consciousness to emerge. Shakti won't come in any environment. So I have to watch the way I talk to myself. I have to watch the emotions and the energies I entertain within me. Because if they're lower frequency, if I function on shame and guilt and talk bad to myself about myself, if I entertain a victim mentality, this is a low frequency. So my number one step after moving within is to observe what's my environment. How do I upgrade my space? How do I enter purity, innocence? How do I enter this metamorphosis? And it's about allowing. It's about asking for it. It's about requesting it. It's about becoming intentional with it. So that's my first couple of steps into how to awaken and take your sex life to a whole new level. It's also about freeing yourself up from all the limitations we've built around our sex life, right? And it's about engaging powerfully with the source of our ecstasy, which is Shakti, as a spiritual teacher, and birthing Aphrodite as our inner goddess. We have the right to our inner Aphrodite. Now we just have to make that happen for ourselves. Having said all of that, let's open the floor to questions. I'm going to have some questions now answered from everything you've written. There are two, I think 3 questions that pretty much follow the same context. I can't get an orgasm. How to get it? I don't feel aroused during prelude and sexual act, although I do everything by the book. How to self-love and masturbate. I am not in the mood for it. Very rarely feel like it, although I'm dedicating time and attention to my body, to self-care, to feminine practices, sensual practices. But I don't feel like masturbating because I can't reach an orgasm on my own. I've been trying for so long. I've opened up and discovered my wild woman in bed with men, but not in bed with myself. And I'm still struggling with this, and I feel lost, not sure what to do. And there's another question, but it's in a different area. So, first of all, it's not about having an orgasm. This is a healing journey, and it's an awakening journey, and it's not about objectives. And I think this is a very masculine way of approaching sexuality. Men need you to orgasm because it's how they feel manly. And there's a lot of pressure in the Western culture for women to orgasm during sex because it's a way to validate a man's manhood. Regardless of whether she feels into it or not, she needs to, in the end, pretty much fake it just to keep his ego alive. And all of us have done it, if we're honest. So where is the space for me to follow my own rhythm, to sit with my own numbness, to engage with my lack of pleasure so that I can move from negative into positive? Nowhere. There's no permission for me to move with my own rhythm. So now I'm taking this patriarchal obsession, this patriarchal standard, this objective-oriented type of masculine approach, and I've internalized it through the patriarchal system that I've been living into. And now I put pressure on myself to orgasm like a standard. And when I do, I'm invalidating myself. But I'm literally so far away of the loving process. I have to engage with myself and my body to just explore and discover myself. Do you think those young ladies who were 12 or 15 and they were taken into the sexual initiation by the priestesses would be put into a test mode and they would have to orgasm one after the other to prove their worth in the circle? Or would these maternal mothers start with very ABC steps of just, cooking tea and feeling the herbs and smelling chocolate and tasting chocolate and rubbing our body with mud and jiggling and giggling and being childlike in nature, discovering our senses through play? Because yes, we may be 60, 70, 20, 30, 40, 50 here on the live, but we're all adolescents who haven't explored and discovered sexuality, our bodies, our senses. We haven't looked in the mirror. We haven't loved ourselves. We haven't touched ourselves from head to toe. We don't even know our body. Most of us haven't even looked at our vulva. Just watching your clitoris in the vulva and vagina in the mirror and looking at it, falling in love with your skin, your belly, your hips, So we want to reach orgasm. It's like we want to just skip from first grade to university with no training. And it's a mental masculine approach. So drop the need to have an orgasm, drop the standard, drop the pressure. One, because you're not going to get it that way. And second, because that's not the path. It's not the purpose for you to orgasm. The purpose is for you to awaken. Orgasm is a side effect of you blossoming and allowing your senses to open. It comes spontaneous and natural, and it's all built in within. You don't have to do anything. There's no technique to orgasm. You just have to allow it. And this approach is literally moving from pressure and standards into a loving embrace, where the purpose or the intention or the focus is on your senses, on feeling or not feeling, on tasting and not tasting, on hearing and not hearing, or discovering a range of things that give you pleasure, a range of things that give you aliveness, a range of things that make you happy and alive and smiling, a range of things that give you a romantic energy. Because we are creatures of wildness, we're creatures of romance, we're creatures of senses, we're creatures of pleasure. And it has nothing to do with sex. We can have pleasure from a chocolate. We can have pleasure from drinking a nice wine and listening to jazz. We can have pleasure for just being totally in awe by sunset or sunrise. And it's about cultivating those experiences that will take you out of the mind and into feeling. That's the practice you want to focus on. Get out of the mind and move into the feeling. The moment you start the morning until in the evening. Cultivate more and more of that during your day, through the hustle, through commuting, through all the negative energies you come across, through work and kids and men and everything you have to do. Just take some time off and engage with the mystery of life. Be drawn enigmatically into that flow because it's natural for us women. We've just disconnected from this lifestyle because we've lived so much in the masculine. You need to fall in love with life. You need to fall in love with yourself. You need to love yourself, feel into yourself, play with your magnetism and your sensuality as it slowly tickles in and arises with no pressure. And if you come up against a pattern, a limiting pattern of numbness, fear, shame, guilt, frustration, infertility, lack of libido, these are things that are talking to you about your wounds. These are things that are teaching you how the body has been feeling from the moment you got born through living everything you've lived up until today because you haven't loved it. You haven't awakened it. You haven't touched it with love and gentleness and sacredness. So your body is keeping the score. Your body telling you, I'm not feeling anything. And I won't just feel it in 5 seconds because you've decided to make me alive. You need to be patient and work with me. I've been suppressing this negative stuff for so many years. Now all of a sudden you want me to go from that to orgasm? It's an assumption that won't function. So you need the loving embrace of your maternal energy, connecting with your body, awakening your body, starting with walking barefooted. Started with taking moments of pleasure throughout the day. Start with relaxing episodes, but with no purpose of having those lead into orgasm or masturbation. You need to first relax. Then you need to cultivate aliveness. Then you need to allow the sexual energy to rise up. And then you are developing through different experiences and practices the momentum of that, and then orgasm happens. So orgasm is pretty much phase 4. So start with being alive. Start with relaxation. And don't think about orgasm. Just enjoy yourself. Explore yourself. Look at yourself in the mirror. Start looking at the things you don't like. Bring acceptance to that. And embrace yourself, whether that's physical touch, but not sexual touch. Just literally caressing yourself, caressing your body, hugging yourself, being just loving and gentle with yourself, with your body, with your femininity. It needs more love than we want to acknowledge. And it doesn't have to start with a man. It can start with you. Actually, that loving maternal energy of love will never happen through a man's embrace. We first need to love the adolescent and initiate the adolescent so that we can birth the woman. The man needs to meet the woman will meet the man. But what's been missing before this full interaction, man and woman, is the love for the adolescent. So the love for the inner girl, right? So it's about discovering this essential play with yourself with no objective in mind. Second question, how to cultivate sensuality, sexuality, but preserve it for someone matching my level and current desire and intention of a meaningful relationship. I want to feel sensual, but not to fall so easy for compliments and sexual attraction and meaningless one-night stands. Well, it's very simple. I don't think they have to go one after the other. So allowing compliments, flirting, allowing magnetism and sexual attraction between you and men can be a practice for you that arouses your Aphrodites. that from time to time you take your Aphrodites out for a walk and you allow men to stir the water. But then you also have the inner priestess who's saying, is this man worthy of my Aphrodites? And if the answer is no, then just keep the flirting, keep the stirring, allow the fire to ignite, but don't go into the fire. Don't move into sex with that man. Hold a boundary for yourself. Follow your intuition, follow your energy, ask your inner energy, is this guy ready to meet me? And if the answer is no, stick with the sexual attractions, flirtation, seduction. That's good. You don't have to go all the way through. You can stop. You can decide. You can have boundaries all the way. You can test the guy. You can prepare the space for the next level. You can see if he's listening and willing to do the steps to level his frequency up so he can meet you. So you're not just showering everything on him. You're not saying, oh, I see you, you're flirting with me, you like me, I'm going to give you all my treasures. No, you give him a little bit and then you test him and you make him be a warrior and you make him fight for you and then you give him a little bit more. And in that, he will raise his frequency and be a match for you. And along the path, if he's not, you just drop him with no guilt and shame because this is just a game and you're leading the way. And it's okay for you to say no. You don't owe this man anything. He's been delighted by your presence. He's been in the space of an embodied woman. That's his gift. Whatever along the way you want to say no, he should be grateful for your presence up to that point. So you're totally in control. And you can play with your own boundaries. And you can have it all without sacrificing your frequency. It's about you holding a space within your own boundary and being firm with it and leading from that boundary your interactions with the masculine. And you're not preserving it for any man. You are preserving it for the right to engage with ecstasy. You're not holding a higher frequency and wait for the Prince Charming to come into your life. You're holding a high frequency so that you can drink from the goddess. You're holding on to that sacredness so that you can have access to the goddess. And then if a man will come up and will do the work to level his frequency, he will be invited into having access through you to the goddess. So it's not your problem if the man is ready or not. If the man shows up, it's like, hey, here, something special is going on. If you want a taste of this, you need to follow the rules. And the rules are you teaching this guy through your own inner boundaries how to level his game up so that he can meet you. So you're not giving all the treasure away. You're giving little stones, putting it on his path, helping him get to the actual sacred temple. If he gets to the temple, if he puts the right key into the temple door, and if the sacred temple opens, he is a lucky man. He just used his manhood and his intellect to level himself up, and you are now both entering the sacred temple, and Shakti will bless both of you. You are not preserving your level and waiting, being a victim of loneliness until Prince Charming is coming. You don't need Prince Charming. Your ecstasy is in the sacred temple blessed by Shakti. When you feel that, when you learn that, when you experience that, you'll be free. Prince Charming comes, great. You know, like in any legend, Prince Charming needs to go through some tests. He needs to show up. So you're testing him and you're preparing him. You're guiding him. You're initiating him because you want him there in the sacred temple with you. You want him to be ready to drink from the goddess. If he's not ready, fine, no problem. You can leave him on the path because, yes, it's extremely exciting to have a lover who can enter the temple and to have this experience of deep ecstasy with a man in the temple blessed by Shakti. But one of the things you need to understand is if he's not ready to level up, the doors will close for him. So yes, it may be unfulfilling. You haven't met a man who's ready or they failed the test, but now it's up to you to decide, are you going to be a victim of the unreadiness of men, or are you going to go into the temple and enjoy yourself anyway? You know, we're living in times where there's a gap between women awakening and men awakening. This is the generation we're living into. And we're going to have to be wise and patient. I think men are starting to wake up, but they have a lot of work to do, and we're very ahead. And for us to merge that gap and feel comfortable and still live our life in happiness, we need to accept the gap. We need to not back down from what we have accomplished just because it's taking them longer to get there. So it's about a balance between how much you engage and what you preserve. One of the greatest lessons that Shakti has poured into my every single fiber throughout these 12 years was this deep experience of self-worth, and nothing and no one will take that away from me anymore. And she has taught me. I didn't have a mother who taught me that. I never saw a woman who was able to embody and instill in me this sense of preciousness, of self-worth. It was direct transmission of after many years because I was struggling. And Shakti was my guide into that. And I realized, okay, I'm not losing anything. There's no compromise for me to take with my self-worth, because what I have access through her will be much more valuable than anything I compromised in order to try to win a fantasy about Prince Charming, right? Try to test that this guy may have the potential. Having the potential and being the potential are two different things. And you need to test the guy and see, are you a potential? Are you the embodiment of that potential? And at some point on the journey, you'll want the embodiment and you won't compromise anymore. So if it's just potential, flirt, be in that potential, use that potential, stir your waters, engage with life, with men, with love. But, you know, realize this is the only thing you're getting through that interaction. There's no point in moving forward because he's not ready. So it's about decision and evaluation, testing and clarity, presence and connection. And it's all guided by your own intuition, by your own inner Aphrodite. That's why you need her. You need to do the work to heal your connection with your sexual fire so that you can birth Aphrodites, because you don't have the filters instilled in you to test and play this game with man. You know, most of us are wounded adolescent inner girls who have lack of love, lack of respect, lack of self-worth, and we will compromise. We will buy into the lie. So there needs to be a different reference within your body which just holds you to account. Okay? If it was up to me, I would never hold myself to account. Now, after doing a lot of practice with Shakti energy, there's just this pillar of light, like a sword, activated within my gut and literally like an energetic line holding me straight, parallel to my spine, saying me, no, we don't go there. This guy is not worthy, not ready, whatever. We don't go there. And I listen to her. I honor her because I know. So, you know, many times I was falling in love with men. It's like, oh, this is it. Is it the way I feel with this guy? And Shakti is, yeah, whatever. The way you feel with this. Literally, this was the message. The way you feel with this guy is the way you feel. Nothing to do with the guy. The guy, you know, irrelevant. So, yeah, enjoy the guy. But pay attention to what you're feeling. This is your heritage. This is your power. This is your legacy. Eventually, the guy would screw up and he would leave. And I'm like, yeah, you were right. I'm a goddess. I'm always right. But the most important lesson here is what you've gained through it. He was a catalyst. And we need a catalyst from time to time. But remember, is he worthy or he's just a catalyst? Play. Enjoy yourself, but hold yourself to a standard. And allow the standard to kick in. And the standard will work on your behalf. Your intuition will work on your behalf. You will start being guided to pay attention, to be patient, to test him, to wait, to evaluate, to give him a little bit. You'll feel it literally in your body, in your ovaries, in your gut. You'll know when to shut up, when to engage, how to engage, what to show him, what not to show him, what to keep for yourself. It's going to be mysterious, magnetic, and amazing. And what's great about it they will fall in love for you and never recover. And there will be a line waiting at the door, because now you're the embodiment of Shakti's mystery. They can't get you. They don't understand you. You're a mystery unto yourself. And that is mind-blowing for men. It's beyond technique. It's beyond how you look. It's beyond how your breasts are. It's beyond how sexy your lingerie is. You are unpredictable. You are emanating magnetism. They don't know where it's coming from. They can caught you. You're not trapped under their spell. It's mesmerizing for them. They are haunted by you. And you're like, yeah, are you ready? No, next. So that's even more exciting for men, because the hunter kicks in and he wants to fight for you. So now he's ready to be a warrior. He's ready to hunt for you. Meanwhile, you are just like Artemis, enjoying the goddess, bathing in the sacred space, having your orgasms, being focused on your journey, and saying yes to whatever extent this pleases you. So now you're leading the way, and they are following you, right? And I'm going to wrap up with another question that I think is very important. I don't really understand this question very clearly, but I think I'm going to intuitively connect with it. I wonder about a father's impact on his daughter's perception of her body and sexuality. And this is a very vague question, because I'm sensing two directions here. One is the awakening of senses and sensuality and sexuality and sexual identity within the daughter, and how men should, as fathers, approach this awakening. I'm also feeling another layer of this, which is the man's reaction to this awakening and how he positions himself in this process. And men are very confused about this as men, as fathers, because there's the natural sexual masculine fire that will just come up in the presence of feminine energy and sexual feminine energy, whether it's channeled through his daughters, through his wife, through his lovers, through women on the street. So the sexual fire of a man picks that up, and man is aroused. That's why in the early stages of our sensuality arising, right, in pre-adolescent energies, boys will be aroused by their mothers and have fantasies with their mothers, and girls will be aroused by fathers and have sexual fantasies about their fathers. Why? Because Shakti is awakening. And when Shakti is awakening, everything is awakening. So the boy will feel aroused by Shakti's feminine presence in his mother. She's the only woman he sees, right? And the other way around. So the authentic position for a father or a mother in relationship to this is to put a psychological and physical boundary the moment he or she as a parent starts feeling that the child is moving from a neutral place, because children up until 4 and 5 are neutral. They don't have a sexual identity, okay? They see they have a pussy or the penis, little penis. They're told they're boys and girls, but there's not yet an actual experience of this differentiator. So around 4 and 5, 6 starts this differentiator, and they're clinging more into boys and girls, and they may have, transgender connections. Boys may feel girls and girls may feel boys. I'm not talking about that. It's a connection to the sexual identity, right? Not to the gender. Well, the moment this starts up, the father and the mother need to hold a boundary of neutrality. So in this case, I'm a man, but I'm also a father. So for my daughter, the man goes in the back end and the father kicks in. And the father's energy is a neutral, parenting, loving, protective, holding space of the development and the flourishing of his particular child, who happens to be a daughter, a girl, turning into an adolescent and a woman. So I'm holding space for the humanity of my child, making very clear that she's a woman, an emerging woman, deferring to my wife for everything that has to do with womanly subjects, because I can't hold space for that. And making energetically and sexually the boundary, transmitting this subtle message: I see you as an arousing woman, as an emerging woman. You are my daughter and you are a woman, an emerging woman, but you are not my choice as a woman. I choose your mother as a woman because for you, you are my daughter. When you grow up, you'll choose a man. I'm not your man. I'm the man of your mother. So I'm your father to you and the man of your mother. And if the man or the woman, the vice versa, holds psychologically these two paradoxical expressions in relationship to both the girl and the woman, that's when the girl, the daughter, will flush her sexual arousal and fantasies with his father and progress and move to peers, other men in the external environment. Why? Because the father has put a boundary. I'm not a man here. I won't get an arousal from your feminine energy. I'm directing my masculine fire to your mother. She's my choice. She's the woman with which I'm having a sexual entanglement. With you, it's just love, neutrality, and protection. I'm teaching you. I'm holding space for you. I'm empowering you. I'm protecting you. I'm giving you all that you need as a human being and as a daughter. And he's starting to focus more on the emotional aspect, the psychological aspect of growing his daughter. So the same happens with a woman, with a boy. You're not allowed to look at me as a woman. I'm the woman of your father. When you grow up, you'll take your own woman. So now the child, daughter or boy, is guided towards his peers, towards the external environment. Well, he will start to engage sexually at his level, at his age, with boys and girls based on his attraction. This is the right approach psychologically and energetically in this dynamic between father and daughter, mother and boy. And with the daughter's perception of the body and her own sexuality, well, that comes into the realm of the mother. The mother needs to pick that up and start being the initiator, the priestess, holding space, loving the daughter, starting talking to her, noticing the changes, noticing how the girl starts being more identified with being a woman, starts, wearing dresses, want to be a princess, starts touching her body, starts giggling, shows her pussy at school to other girls. They giggle about it. They start caressing their pussies. All of these are part of her awakening as a woman, and they need to be loved and embraced. All of a sudden, you are now a receptacle for everything that's coming through in her sexuality. You're guiding her sexuality alongside with her. You are creating a safe environment of joyful, curious exploration. Nothing's wrong. Nothing needs to be punished. Everything can be talked about. Everything needs to be understood at her age level. So it's a playfulness. It's an innocence. It's an exploration. You don't throw a full-on lesson of sexuality at 4 with your daughter. It may traumatize her. You start with listening to what's bubbling up within her, and you follow her lead. So all of a sudden, we distinguish, for example, in our mother's group, that our daughters were looking at each other's little pussies and giggling about it, and we made it fun. And we started saying, yeah, that's cool. You're having a little pussy. Like making it normal, because it's okay. It's exploring herself. It's looking at herself in the mirror. She needs to start doing that early. We haven't been doing that forever. Let her get that lesson going under her belt. It's part of her initiation. And it's not going to progress more than that, because every single awakening is connected to the psychological stage they're in. They'll move into another energy, and eventually that will kick in later on our sexual fire in our pre-adolescent energy. So just following the lead of our kids. And pretty much these are the questions for today's live. I want to acknowledge you for being live with me, and I totally encourage you to, bring your aliveness through the questioning in our next episodes. For today, let's wrap this up, and we're going to connect next Friday with another episode, and we're going to explore a little bit vulnerability and emotional safety connected to sexuality. So we're going to elevate a little bit the conversation to rise to our emotions, our intimacy, and our emotional safety when it comes down to relating, relationships, and exploring our sexuality. So stay tuned for our next episode, same hour, same place. Be ready to shoot a live question. Anything about intimacy, vulnerability, emotionality, relationships, love for self, love with a partner, around sexuality and around intimacy. And fire your questions down below in our regular flow of asking questions and writing them before the live session. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I can't wait to connect with you next Friday. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of the Feminine Podcast. Next week, we'll dive into another engaging topic chosen by you, our listeners. Have a question or a story to share? Check the description box below and send it our way. And before you go, make sure you hit the subscribe button so you won't miss out on our next episode. Follow us on iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, and YouTube, and make sure you comment, ask questions, and share our episode with other women in your life. Remember, every dialogue we have is a step closer to discovering your feminine potential and how you can create a life that's truly feminine, a life that you love. Catch you next week.